Hello, Alex. Thank you so much for being here. Before we start the interview today, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. So my name is Alex from Clausbruch. I'm the CEO of Radix, one of the co-founders of Radix. We started the company in 2010. We are a service company that have a deep understanding on the process industry, and that we combine the knowledge of the process industry with digital solutions, IT, OT, operation technology, and engineering. So today we are around 2,000 employees globally. We work in several different countries. Our main operations are in Brazil, Europe, and US. I'm based today in Houston, Texas, and today my responsibility here is to increase our presence global with global clients.
Can you share some insights then into Radix's business model and how your go-to-market strategy is shaping the company's growth, particularly in North America?
Yeah, so Radix position as a company different a little bit from the typical consulting IT companies that are in the market today. First, as a company, we are really trying to take the most results of the technology already available, correct? So we are not trying to help our customers to see what will be in the future, but really to bring results right now. So what are the technologies that can enable huge return of investments for our clients, and how we can deliver this in the short term, so guarantee that they get the results they expected, correct? So we position ourselves as a company that really fulfill the aspirations and needs of our client using the technology that's available and what they already have in place, or of course we help them to define what is the technology that should be applied for the digital journey they have. So based on this, we are very concerned about of course, extracting the maximum value of this technology, understanding the business case that can provide the best results for them, and guaranteeing that the adoption of this technology in the company will be spread for all the corporation. The other point that makes us a little bit different is that we have this combination of a deep knowledge on the process. So we are basically a group of engineers, so process engineer, mechanical engineers, electrical, that understand the business, understand the equipments, understand the process, and have the IT, OT, and digital knowledge, correct? So we are not specifically an IT company. We are a combination of I would say engineering and a digital company. And we do this for the last, I would say the company started 2010, but the experience of the group comes from 30 years of doing exactly the same. So we do this since the beginning of the 20s, in how we converge IT with process in engineering.
Tell us a little bit about the key trends that you're seeing then in industries like energy, manufacturing, pulp and paper, and infrastructure as we move into 2025.
Yeah, so I think everybody's on the hype on the AI, and I think most of the companies that already started a journey of implementing AI or generative AI are understanding that one of the main difficulties, there are two main difficulties, I would say like two main difficulties. One is the quality of the data or the information that you have. So most of the companies believe they have a good information, good data coming from their systems, and normally that's not 100% true. The other problem is how, I would say three problems, so not two. Other problem is contextualize this information. So typically we are talking about big corporations that have different sites in different parts of the world with different cultures. Most of them acquired or merged in the last years. So technology that they have in each of these plants are very different. The way the data is structured is very different. There are gaps of information. So the first part is, and is a big part, is how to organize all this information, how you put this all in a way that you can really implement digital solutions in a scale. And this takes a while, correct? So it's not a simple job. And honestly, the problem of this, as I said before, we are a company that are very concerned about the return of investments of our clients, is that this first part doesn't give return, right? So it's like you are putting all your data in the correct format, in the correct contextualization base, so you can use it. So it's a little bit tough on the beginning. But of course, if you do it in a correct way, we see companies doing this, that they progress very quickly after they do this infrastructure of data. Second point is, as I said, these companies are spread globally. Adoption is also a big problem, correct? So have different cultures, different ways to deal with technology, different modules of operations. So how you use technology and how they interact with the technology is an important topic. So this is something that we are putting a lot of energy on the maybe in our main clients, how to really guarantee that the technology that is being applied is being used by the final users, operations, or the managers, or whatever, maintenance group or quality. So I think that's the trend. So when I talk about specifics, correct? So I think each of these industries have different questions. We are seeing, of course, everybody is concerned about increasing performance in general, correct? So this is always a part of the day-by-day operations. And of course, this is a big part of our support for the clients, so how we can increase performance, quality of the products. I see a big trend also on the supply chain integrations and supply chain, I would say more sales and operation planning, how you integrate this. We are in a very fuzzy moment with a lot of geopolitics tensions and changes in the supply chain process. So companies need to adapt very quickly to a new environment all the time. It's not something that they change for a period. So I see a lot of companies trying to integrate more supply chain and operations. And that's where I think also Radix have some competence, because with our understanding of the process and the production, we integrate this with our infrastructure knowledge, and of course all the logistics. So that's one way for you to see the entire supply chain from all aspects, right? It's not just as an isolated part of the problem, right? So you integrate everything, and you can of course optimize your supply chain. So I think this is another trend. Of course, there are some trends, important trends that influence our business, but we are not really experts on that. So like cybersecurity is an important topic. We typically use partners to support us on this. We of course have all the standards on the developing of our applications, but we are not a cybersecurity company. But it's a very important topic that we need to guarantee that our applications we are building are cybersecurity safe. And so I think that's the main ones that I'm seeing right now. I think that's it.
Yeah, no, that's some great insights. Yeah, that visibility you highlighted is super important, and yeah, having the credibility that you're building cybersecurity in and working with those really expert partners is key too.
Yes.
Let's go back to the AI area at the moment. You've talked about how impactful it's being across all industries, really. Are there any kind of key elements of operational processes that you see the capabilities of AI and automation being most effectively used?
Yeah, so the way we are seeing AI, especially generative AI, correct? So AI is a little bit the term that's very open, correct? So honestly, I think one of my first projects as an engineer was an AI project, a neural network for a pulp and paper plant in 1998. So it's but when we talk about generative AI, the way we are looking for that is that they will be a kind of an interface, a unique interface for accessing data and accessing information from the different applications and systems in your operations, correct? So one of case that we are building with petrochemical company here in US is we are developing a copilot that the main objective is really to access, I don't know, maybe today around 60 different use cases, correct? So from energy balance for energy management or optimization, performance optimization, and so on all together. So the operator doesn't need to look for all these different applications. They just go to a chat bot or talk to the system directly in a natural language, and they can ask questions. And the generative AI look for what is the best information. It can be from a use case already implemented. So for example, performance of an equipment, or it can be from document that already in the system, or engineering document that's in the system, or a maintenance record or whatever. And they combine this to the operator, correct? So for us, it's like you have someone that helps you navigate on the sea of information that you have in the company and structure this in a way that you just need to interpret the information and take actions, correct? So I think that's a very powerful, and we are already using this with success. The interesting thing is that it increases adoption, correct? So it's very important because it's very difficult for most of the people to know what are the 50 different applications you have in your plant. One for pump performance, another one for loop tuning, another one for, I don't know, advanced process control, another one for real-time optimization. So using this kind of interface, you standardize the way you interact with information, and you guarantee that the information come to you. And of course, the generative AI helps you navigate to the use cases and the documentation that you need to take a decision or make a decision in the real time. So I think that's a very interesting application. Of course, there are very specific AI applications that are using in the industry. So for example, to help optimization problems or to make predictive maintenance more on the machine learning side. But I think these are, I would say, old-fashioned solutions, although they of course have a big value. I think the main difference for that generative AI brings is really the way that you interact with the systems, correct? So in the way that you can use your natural language to talk. I would say that the point that we need to understand is that is not typically you cannot use I don't know, ChatGPT or a very common copilot, because you have the specifics language of your plant and the specifics information. So you need to train your own module with your information and with your language, so the system could understand what you're asking and really give you good answers, right? So you need to train it. So it's not like just install ChatGPT and ask them to do it. But we are having a good progress on this and with good results. I think again, the most interesting one is the adoption. So we increase a lot adoption of this use cases and systems as we facilitate the way people interact with applications.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting space to watch.
Yep. Yeah.
About data management and analytics, what advancements do you anticipate in these areas this year, and how will that support operations?
So I think it's data analytics and AI will still be used on the kind of applications we are using already, correct? I think the point is that modules will be being better. As we have this engineering background, of course, I think there are companies that are realizing that you cannot solve everything just with data, and that you need to combine depending of the application, correct? So I'm talking about very critical, complex applications like in the petrochemical sector, pulp and paper, that you need to combine engineering information or engineering modules with data. And that's what we are looking, sort of what we call hybrid intelligence. So you're using data, historical data you have available, but you also rely on first principle equations, engineering equations. Humanity have working with this for hundreds of years, correct? So it's we cannot neglect all this knowledge that we gain over the years. So what we see is for very critical application, for example, for a furnace in a refinery or a petrochemical complex, it's very nonlinear. You don't have data available for all types of scenarios. So just using AI or data analytics will be not enough. And you cannot guarantee that the extrapolation of conditions will work well. So we combine this with simulation tools, first principle, mass balance, energy balance. So we combine this with modules that runs more like a traditional simulation tools with AI. Of course, there is a trade-off on that because it's not so scalable as an application that you just run on data. So you need to be careful about selecting when you use this kind of more bespoke solutions or customized modules, because they need to be customized and they take more time, and you need to guarantee that they are always tuned and so on. So it costs more, right? But typically you do this for very critical big process and equipments, and it results are much better than just the AI analytics application. On the other side, I see analytics and optimization going to more like a wide, like supply chains process. So we are seeing a lot of companies that have information in different like silos inside the company. We are seeing that most of the companies we work for have one group that works on the supply chain side, another group that works on manufacturing and production. And we are seeing that they need to converge in how you integrate the data. It's, I think, or how you integrate these two words is something that we are seeing a lot of interest from these companies. And I think data analytics will be very helpful, because in this case, we are talking not about nonlinear systems, but we're talking about linear correlations that analytics works much better. Typically, correct? I'm not saying that all cases, but more easy. So I think on analytics, I think that's one trend. Of course, people are expanding the use for other applications, the other use cases. But again, I feel that the main topic today will be data quality and data gathering, right? So although we have a lot of data, so we have an example of a company that we work for, they have like decades of data. And they say, oh, we already have all the data necessary to build the model. But as soon as we start working with them, I think we got like 3-4 months of good quality data. The rest was not really useful, correct? Because they were too compressed, or there was a lacking of information, or there was problems with the transmitters or the equipments or wherever. So it's really a problem when you need to build applications in the future, because you rely on the quality of information you have. So, and that's big topic. And also, again, as I said, contextualize this, because I think the big difference from AI that we have in the last, I say, like 5 years from what we did in 2000 when I started my career was that at the time we were just working for one equipment for one plant. And today, the scale is the important part, right? So how you can take that application that you did for a pump in one plant, I don't know, in the middle of South America, and you spread the same technology and application globally in, I don't know, hundreds of different places. And to do this, you need to contextualize and guarantee that your data is organized in a way that you can scale up very quickly, correct? And if you don't do this, you need to go for each plant and do it one by one, and the cost will be prohibitive, and the scale and the return of investment will be much worse.
What about sustainability then? That's, top of mind for most organizations today. How can technologies like AI and data analytics actually contribute to building a more sustainable world while also improving those efficiencies and delivering that ROI?
Yes. So we had several examples of applications, so like using digital twins to simulate productions and like carbon footprint for customers, or how we use analytics to calculate emissions and make reports about emissions in general. Of course, energy efficiency is something that have a double impact. So we have like the cost reductions, but also an impact on the CO2 emissions and consumption of energy in general. So it's always a big win. Of course, this trend is always, for years ago, was very, very strong. Now companies are with different, geopolitics and politics is changing a little bit. Although, of course, we see a trend in the long term that sustainability will be always an important topic for all these companies. We always try to combine solutions that reduce carbon footprint or reduce emissions with return of investment, correct? So we guarantee that it's not just a matter of reduction of or being sustainable, but that these applications could really increase your cash flow or reduce costs in some way or increase efficiency. So we guarantee that the project will fund itself, right? So it's not really, of course, there are companies that have a very strong targets of reductions. And for example, one of these cases that I said, the digital twin, the idea was to using simulation tools to predict future emissions and see what are the best solutions for them to reduce carbon emissions in the future. So they can simulate different scenarios and see what will be the emissions in 10 years or 20 years or something like this. So I think most of our applications are related to this. So if you look for, there was a big trend on electrification that we saw to try to electrify most of our applications, including like floating production operations, oil and gas operations. Although, of course, this trend was, to be honest, was the energy of the companies that we work for is not so much on this right now. So it's a little bit, it was a very strong trend 2 years ago. Now it's not so strong. But I think it's a matter of time to come back, correct? So it's kind of waves of interest depending on the government, depending on directions. But again, we are committed to a lot of projects like this. Using AI for example, we did an interesting project in South America using AI to take images from the Amazon forest and try to see developing of, because, if you see a developing of a new community, in a new place in the middle of the jungle, it's like a first step for big degradation, right? So, and if you can, using AI to recognize very quickly where these new locations are being built, you can make actions to try to avoid a big degradation of that region. So there are a lot of possible applications, and of course, reductions of emissions in general are correlated to energy efficiency. So good, they have a good return of investment.
Yes, sounds like a really interesting project, that one specifically. More broadly, then, what key digital transformation trends are you seeing across the US? And what are some of the biggest barriers that are preventing companies from reaching their digitalization goals?
So yeah, I think the trend is again how to apply these new technologies and get the results expected. So I see a lot of companies. I think there is a key topic is that in general, companies think about the technology itself, and honestly, of course, technology is a enable us to do things, correct? But I think the main problem today is not about the technology, is again about adoption. So there are a lot of companies that invest millions and millions of dollars in new technology, but they don't get the results they expect. And typically because the technology itself doesn't solve the problem, correct? You need to have the use cases. You need to understand how you extract value from that technology. And that's exactly where we fit, correct? We are not, we work with technology. We don't develop technology. So we apply technology to our clients. And the way we see is that we understand the process, we understand the equipment, we understand the business, and we understand the technology. So how we use the technology to extract the maximum value for our clients, I think it's where we fit perfectly, correct? And I think companies are struggling because they typically try to implement just that, or they buy technology, they don't buy return of investment or business case, correct? And most of the technology companies want to sell technology, correct? So, and the software companies want you to buy the technology. And that's correct, but you need to guarantee that this technology will be used and adopted. And I think that's where I think companies are struggling. Again, data is also a problem. Companies doesn't have the data they think. Most of the time we start a conversation, the guy said, oh, I have petabytes of data, I have millions of data, millions of points. And when we look a little bit closer, we see that the quality is not good, or the information is not there, or there is some problem with very specific variables that we will not be able to use this to do modules, correct? And so there's a kind of a problem when the person thinks that the problem will be solved by the technology, correct? I think the way we see is that we need to understand the problem and find the most suitable solution. It could be a generative AI, very hype one. It could be a very old engineering equation that was developed 100 years ago that solved the problem, correct? So it's I really don't care about to use the most or the edge solution, but to combine all the solutions to have the best result and use it, the most suitable ones for that specific problem, correct? And I see that today there is like everything should be solved with the same like standard solution. So generative AI will be solving all the problems of the world. Of course, it's a really big step into a lot of possibilities, but it doesn't solve everything. So we need to really see where it fits well and helps, and where it doesn't fit well, correct? And it will just cause more problems than solutions. So I think trends is that companies, we are trying to figure out what to do with generative AI, to be honest. We're seeing a lot of companies trying to apply with different results. I like very much this project that we are doing with this company here in the US to use as a kind of an interface or a way for you to interact with the systems. It, for me, makes a lot of sense. So it's like you have one co-pilot for you to help you in your activities during the day and give you information from the different systems and different applications that you have already available and build on engineering modules or data AI or machine learning, whatever, but it collects all this information and give it to you in the structured way so you can, again, make decisions based on that information. And of course, and also, of course, go deep if you need in trying to understand what's going on. So I think the trends, of course, is companies trying to understand what to do with this new technologies. Honestly, Gen AI is still on a curve of being developed. So there are a lot of probably new features and things that will be in the market in the couple of months. And I think that most of the companies are trying to see what is the competition advantage they will have using this. So it's everybody running to see what are the main benefits, especially for the process industry, what we are more involved, okay, in the pulp and paper and so on. But again, this is a step forward and you need to have the basics, correct? So all the data need to be coming in a quality, you need to contextualize the data. So there is a lot of steps to make it really scalable and take more of the advantage that these applications could give you. So I think this year will be, in my opinion, maybe it will be some other breakthrough during the year, but my opinion will be more consolidation for applications, understanding of the value that these applications really deliver, because most of them were developed last year. So they need to, for example, in our case, exactly the same. So we developed the application last year, we implemented, of course, we are evolving this application, but the results will start coming this year. So we need to understand and we need to be very careful about what are the results that's coming from this application. Of course, adjust what needs to be adjusted and see how we can expand.
Thank you. We're going to look at a slightly different topic now. I'm curious to get your insight. Mm-hmm. We're seeing that companies globally, more and more companies globally are beginning to open up to the benefits of cross-company, cross-partner, cross-customer data sharing for insights and innovation. What's your view on this?
Yeah, so it depends on I see different trends depending on the segments, correct? So there are segments that are more, I would say they are more used to share information. So for example, it's very interesting. For example, if you look to the upstream market, oil and gas, typically the investments of these big corporations are done together with other companies. And of course, when they share the ownership of the asset, they share the data of the asset. Typically, they share part of the data of the asset. So they are very, they don't see a big problem well, of course, there are some specific information they don't share, but they have some tendency to share information. When you go to other segments like pulp and paper, they don't share anything, right? So they are very restrict on the information. And the biggest companies, especially here in the US, they don't share information. So I think it depends a little bit on the segment and how the segment is organized and the competition of the segment. So there are some segments that are more open to share information, others not. I think there is a trend for sharing information, but it's also a very strong, I would say, like worry about these companies, how the data will be used. So I see two trends that goes in different direction, correct? So people see the advantage of have a collective information that could be used to extract more data. You know, if you have information for all the pumps in the world, you can do much better than just with the ones that you have, correct? But on the other side, I see a trend that technology companies are trying to get this information and have the information for themselves, and companies are struggling with this, correct? Because at the end, they start being in the hands of a big other big corporation. So if the data is all with one vendor, and this vendor have the access of the data, at the end, sometimes you don't have the access. The vendor have better data than you, correct? So that you really own the data. So I think there is a trend that companies are seeing how data is an asset, let's say, put this way, and they are trying to see ways to protect the data on one side, but also trying to see how they can monetize this information. So with some companies we are working with, they are really willing to have information from themselves, but take part of that and try to monetize or sell the knowledge, correct? So for example, in a Copilot, you can build a Copilot that have like the understanding of a type of a segment that can expedite a new application for a competitor. But of course, you cannot give them the critical or most important information for this competitor. But of course, you can monetize part of your development, trying to sell or trying to, I don't know, maybe partner with a competitor to increase the speed of the development of a Copilot. That's, of course, an expensive development. So I think that one trend that goes in the direction of sharing, and there's a trend that people are trying to protect the data because they see value on that. They see that they can monetize part of this. So I think in the future, what will happen is that the data will be more protected, and people will try to monetize this information. And it's already happening, correct? But I think it will be a trend to monetize, because for most of these companies, like a process industry, they were not really caring about so much. My data is in the server, and honestly, it's protected to everybody. Nobody can see it, but my vendor can see it, correct? But today they say, oh, this data is mine, correct? It's an asset of my company, so I can use this to make money.
Super interesting. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.